Miguel Angel Moratinos has an in-depth knowledge of the Israeli-Palestinian negotiations. He was the European Union Special Envoy for the Middle East for 7 years. He's experienced firsthand the ups and downs of the peace process and negotiated face-to-face with its main players. Mr. Moratinos, thank you for joining us on Euronews. It's difficult evaluating a controversial figure like Ariel Sharon. To what extent would the decisions made by Sharon himself, both on the battlefield and in the political arena, have shaped today's Israel?
He was a controversial figure, as you say, and history will judge him, along with his enormous grey zones, like Sabra and Shatila. Nobody will ever forget the massacres in those Palestinian refugee camps in September 1982. Also, he did not always agree with the negotiations that started after the Oslo Agreement. He was always trying to enlarge the settlements, the colonies, provoking people with his controversial visit to the Temple Mount, unleashing the Second Intifada. But then, when he became Prime Minister, he softened and focused more towards the peace agreements.
Does
his death somehow mark the end of an era? The end of that generation of Israeli leaders forged in war?
I hope so. Until now, more or less all of the prime ministers of Israel have had to have moved up the army ranks. There was a feeling that security was the most important thing, and that's still largely the case in Israeli politics. But it's true that Sharon's death may bring the start of a new era.
How was Sharon at the negotiating table?
Actually, he had kind of a double personality. He was always very kind when you first met him. I remember once he invited me to a farm near Gaza, and he was very relaxed and kind. But then, when it came to negotiating, he was a very dynamic man who made harsh decisions, in some cases transcendental ones.
Sharon was considered the founder of the settlement movement in the occupied Palestinian territories, but as a prime minister, in an amazing turnaround, he showed that the settlements were not irreversible. Was the withdrawal from Gaza in 2005 his biggest contradiction, or a strategic movement?
Many important figures in Israeli politics progress to important government positions and then look for solutions. That was the case with Yitzhak Rabin and even Golda Meir and Ben Gurion. Sharon also looked for solutions, but perhaps not in the best possible manner, because he refused to shake hands with President Arafat. His refusal to negotiate, to make commitments and agreements of any kind, had an impact on his decisions, even the good ones. Like the withdrawal from Gaza, for example, which was a unilateral measure. There was no agreement with the Palestinian National Authority. There was always a gap, and we'll never know whether Sharon planned to sign a definitive agreement or wanted a Palestinian state side by side with Israel, living in peace.
We leave it there. Thank you very much for being with us today, Mr. Moratinos.